Since retiring from the department, he has become an acclaimed motivational speaker, leadership coach, author, and active community leader. Today, he's here to share his remarkable journey from navigating the challenges of September 11th to inspiring others to reach their highest potential. So everybody, please welcome retired NYPD Chief Joe Fox.
Thank you.
Yes. Welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well, and I appreciate that kind introduction. But was it an April Fool's joke?
You know what? This time we're being serious, because you can't make joke or make light of all the amazing accomplishments that you have had throughout your career. And it has spanned over decades. And I want to kind of just start with you as a police officer, right? What made you want to get into law enforcement? What was it? About 37 years. You started in 1981. You served.
1981. So my father, I believe, barely graduated the 8th grade, or maybe did not. And here I was growing up watching this man, Walter Fox, Avenue, and everybody came to him when they needed help. This man with no education and no credentials, he was a police officer. And if a neighbor had a car accident, they came to Walter to see what to do next. If somebody was having a problem with their kid on drugs, they came to Walter. And I think that planted a seed in me, that I wanted to be the person that people came to for help.
Wow.
And so why not just do what he did on the job and off the job?
I love that.
So
Wow.
it was that simple. I was very fortunate that I had that model.
You know, there's it's almost being a hometown hero, you know, and there's something really special about that, where, you know, they say, you know, if the people in your own house, if they don't, you know, honor and respect and love you, you know, that's where, you know, home is where the heart is, you know, and if you don't have that in your sphere of influence, you know, you can't expect to have that outside of it, you know?
Yeah, it's foundational.
Yeah.
It really is. And it was a great model for me. I learned a lot from him.
That's amazing.
And my mom.
That's amazing. So at what age did you started, and then what kept you going? Was it the memory of just always seeing what your dad did?
That was kind of like a given, and I'm very fortunate because actually to jump ahead, as a 2-star chief from Brooklyn South, I decided that when I retired, I wanted to become a nurse. So I went and did all my prereqs in Kingsborough Community College, staying up till 4 in the morning, studying for a test, while being the chief of Brooklyn South. I would do one course at a time. But I saw all these other students, and I realized that they were working so hard at a career. And if we didn't get a B in Anatomy 1 and Anatomy 2, you were out.
Oh, wow.
And I saw people drop out. And I'll never forget this one woman. She was a single parent. I remember once they sprung a test on us, and we were about to leave at 8 p.m. And she says, "I hope my child's asleep when I get home," because her mom was watching the baby. And when it came time where you had to like drop out, she was gone. And I thought, I just took a test at 22 years old, and I have this dream job, and this woman just lost her dream and I didn't have to do that at the time. Having said that, police officers put their heart and soul and literally risk their lives. So I have a bunch of emotional battle scars.
Yeah.
I'm okay physically.
Yeah.
But it was just something that in one sense it came easy. I had the role model. I had to take a test. But it's not that easy, because I had to make the right choices before then. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I had to, you know, keep myself in line and follow the right role models, and here we are.
Wow. Yeah, and here we are. Yeah, following the role models and also becoming a role model yourself. And we'll get into that later about what you're doing now, of inspiring others who are young like you were, going through taking tests and whatnot. But I want to get back to a little bit on your career itself, because you actually rose to the rank of 3-star chief. Now that is an impressive feat. So what was, you know, one of the most significant challenges throughout your tenure, and what was it like when you got promoted to that?
Well, it's funny, because, you know, you get promoted to sergeant. I was lucky I made it with 3 years. And then you think, wow, like, you can't believe you've made this. And I never expected the next level. And then my partner and I both studied, and then it became almost like a competition for all the people you studied with who made sergeant. You don't want them to leave you behind. So now you're going to become a lieutenant. And then after the rank of captain, it's all based on merit. And then it was kind of a good free fall, where it's just, I guess, and it's, I'll tell you how it happened. I just spoke at Career Day at PS 60 in Woodhaven, Queens. And I put up this PowerPoint with all these, pictures of me doing press conferences and all these things in uniform. And I asked the kids how this happened. And of course, they raise their hands and they talk about study and they talk about doing your work. And I said, yes, but what really got me where I was, in addition to that, was working well with other people and finding the good in everyone you can find the good in. And there's good in everyone.
Yeah.
And when you focus on that, and you build relationships and build teams, because that's what it's all about. That's what success is about in any profession. It's about working well with people and working well with others. And I think I always enjoyed that. And somehow it translated to getting promoted a lot of times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hard work too.
There's probably more to this that people around me would tell you, but for me, it's that simple.
Yeah. It seems like, what you're speaking on is humility, right? And really being able to almost step outside of yourself and see the world through someone else's lens and from their shoes. And even the story you just shared about the woman taking the test, some people would just see her drop out and just like, okay, she dropped out. But even what you shared, you're like, wow, I'm here, I'm taking this. And she has had to drop out, and you remembered what she said about, hoping that her kid is.
I'll never forget her face.
Yeah.
It was 2010. And I remember it was like 8:30, we got out of class, we were in Kingsborough, and she lived all the way down here someplace, downtown Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I remember wanting to like offer her a ride, and I didn't know her that well, and it just wouldn't look right. And, but it broke my heart when she disappeared. So, when you talk about these accomplishments, whenever anyone makes a big deal out of my titles, I always say I'm just a small fry in a McDonald's Happy Meal. But I'm one of the happiest small fries. And I just never. And you mentioned being outside of yourself. There are many times where I feel, like just listening to this introduction, where I'm over here watching this, and I'm not sure how it happened. And the day I think I know how this happened is the day it's not fun.
Yeah.
So I just try to live in wonder every day.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, I think you have passion, and there's a reason why you got into law enforcement. And if you don't have that passion for it, then you're saying that I just kept getting promoted, but it seems like you were just being yourself and just doing the right thing over and over again, and people took notice of that, and that's something to look up to.
Yeah, and it's all, and it's like I also do leadership training, and as a leader, when you focus on building your team and nurturing your team, everything works out. Everything comes like this is something I talk about, servant leadership. And when I first started looking into this to teach it, I thought, wait a minute, that's a thing? Like, why is that even a word? Isn't that what we all do? And it's not what we all do, because we've all worked for bosses who see themselves as, I'm the boss and you work for me.
Yeah.
And you hear that term, work for. People will say, oh yeah, he worked for me someplace. I'll never say someone worked for me because I worked with them.
Wow.
And it's a little thing. And I'll see this on social media. Someone will say it was great working for you, and I'll always say I enjoyed working with you as well. It's just a subtle thing.
Yeah.
But I found that by building up others, I never needed to build myself up. We build each other up together.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great quality to have. And speaking of people that you've worked with, I mean, you were supervising over 2,600 officers. That is a large personnel. How are you able to do that? And you're getting promoted. So did you just learn as the job happened? But it sounds like you just have those leadership skills inherently.
Well, I think what at some point when I realized that I was elevating, getting these higher positions and commands, I think something clicked, and I thought that it's all about bringing people with me. So, you start looking for teachable moments. And as a captain, as a commanding officer, it became a lot. Like it dawned on me one day, I was a CO to 7-1 precinct in Crown Heights. I was an inspector. And it dawned on me, because there's this expression people like to say cynically, what are they teaching them in the academy? They're not showing them this in the academy. And I thought, the academy is not the only place that we teach. We're all supposed to teach. We're supposed to teach as leaders, we're supposed to teach as supervisors, and we're supposed to teach as people. And I think the biggest thing for me is always looking for teachable moments, because when you always look, we retain 95% of what we teach to others. It's the highest retention level. So everything I'm speaking about now, I'm also speaking to me.
That's great.
And it's reinforcing these concepts for me. And so if we're constantly, at any profession you're in, if you're always looking for ways to teach that profession to the guy who just got hired a month ago, then you're going to be better at what you do, because it's going to make you think. I mean, even this, you know, there's somebody coming up, an intern, and you're spending time talking to them about the craft that you do so well. It's like a refresher course for ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So I think I'm just looking, and that's what I'm doing now. You know, I'm just looking to share moments with make the world look in a place, in a way that's more positive than too many of us think it is.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, Joe, it's just hearing about how you operate in life. You are pouring into people, and that process which you're defining is, you know, as you pour into people, it's like, you know, there's a siphon where, you know, your cup gets refilled as well in that process, and you find just such a joy in that, you know, and you know, I think you've pulled from motivations from, you know, you've seen your father do it, and this has been something that's ingrained in you. But do you have any maybe like success stories that you have where you've poured into someone and you've seen them almost begin to reciprocate that? You know, you've trained tons of officers, but I can imagine there's so much joy in that. But do you have any stories where you've seen people you've kind of maybe mentored go on to do amazing things?
Well, two quick ones. One was just the other day. I was in an Uber in DC, and an NYPD sergeant reached out to me, who we've been casually acquainted on social media, and she was going through a professional challenge, and I spent the 40-minute Uber ride chatting with her, and when I finished with her, the Uber driver turned and said, "May I say something?" He says, "I don't know what that was about, but it sounds like you have a good heart."
Aww.
So I said to him, so I went right on the app and not only, of course, tipped him, but I wrote something special about how it was not a ride. It was like a, you know, validation of humanity with this man. So who knows what that'll mean when it gets to him. Yeah. But now this officer I was speaking with, you know, she has no idea how connected we will be now. Because like, I'm invested now. I'm invested because she had the confidence in me to reach out when she was going through this challenge, and she handled this challenge very well. But even back further, it was a week or two after 9/11, and I got this letter, in my handwritten letter, and the English was a bit choppy, and the writer, it was from a boy, or a male, and the writer talked about how I used to think police were out here to harass us, and now I realize what they do. And he was referring to the 23 cops, the firefighters, and Port Authority, but particularly police. He said, "I realize what they do." So I held this letter. I ran out to my office and said, "Find this kid." Yeah. Let me take that back. I thought it was a young adult. And because he said cops harass, I said, this is probably somebody who maybe has been arrested a couple of times. Yeah. So it was real important for me to find him. Sure. So this young man turned out to be 11 years old. His name was Ira Kadeem Griffin. And he lived in the housing projects, the housing developments in Canarsie. And that became, he'd visit the office, and the whole community affairs team, because it's always a team, would like go pick him up. And I had nothing to do with scheduling these meetings. They never cleared my schedule because I didn't matter, because they enjoyed this kid's company. So then as he's going to college, he would come right before he went away again and visit me. And anyone who's had a child who's gone away to college knows what a big deal that is. Yeah. And at one point I called his mom. I said, "How's he doing?" This is when he was like 13. She's okay. She says, "You know, when he gets out of the police van, a lot of guys yell at him, 5-0, 5-0, which is like a slang for cop." And I remember thinking, the little bit of cynical in me thought, I don't know if this kid's going to make it. You know, because look at the environment he's in, where because he's getting out of a police car, he's getting catcalls. And he's now a principal in a major school in Newark, New Jersey. When he first became a teacher, we had lunch. He calls me Uncle Fox. And he told me he was going to Detroit. He got selected, his first assignment. I said, "Ira, that's a tough place." And he said, "I know. It's a challenge. That's what I want." So, like, you know, it almost sounds like a cliche, but the goosebumps are all over me right now just speaking about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And if I wasn't sitting in that chair, and if I hadn't been promoted to two-star chief and sitting in Brooklyn South, he didn't know Joe Fox. He wrote that letter to whoever the chief of Brooklyn South was.
yeah.
And now we're like family.
Wow. I mean, that story is giving me goosebumps.
Yeah.
It really
It was
is.
special.
That's a heartwarming story. And I mean, that fully answers that question from
Yeah.
start to
Yeah.
finish of where he's
was
ended up
special.
being a principal. And now he's using the tools that you've given him
He's so
and being a
good at it.
mentor to someone else. Yeah.
He's so good at it. And,
Yeah.
you know, and we're, and even when his mom passed, he was about 20. And I went to the viewing, and I sat there and watched him. And he was standing up there, and he was like this patriarchal figure. Like, he was greeting the family. And I thought, he's 20 years old. He's like the man of the family. I was so proud of him.
Wow.
But and I guess you know, reducing crime and keeping people safe was real important. But you won't hear me talk about crime stats. But you'll hear me talk about is people, because the cops. If we support the cops, they will support the mission. If we support the people who carry out our mission as bosses, is not to do the mission; it's to support the people who do the mission.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wonderful lesson to learn. And I think that just shows why you've been so successful, especially in
Thank
this
you.
business, in this industry. Wow. I mean, we have so much more to talk about. But guys, I promised you it was going to be a fantastic conversation, fantastic interview. We're going to take just the briefest of commercial breaks. When we come back, we have more to
Thank
get
you.
to with Mr. Joe Fox. We'll be right back.
All right. Welcome back to the AM show. We are here again with a very, very special guest. He is a man of the community. His heart is huge, and we are having just such an incredible conversation. But we are here with Joe Fox, and we have just been having such a blast just being able to talk to you and hear how you have just such a heart and an affinity for people. We're hearing how you affect people just by your way of being. And we had questions as you were involved in, again, you know, the tragedies of 9/11. You had received a letter from a young man who, as you continue to pour into him, as he's gone to do to great things. But yeah, we wanted to dive into more about your involvement with that day. Can you describe even, you know, what was it like for you on the day when you got notification that everything happened?
Well, it was. It's literally a 24-year story for me, because all of us are living with that every day.
Yeah.
But I was at my daughter's parent-teacher. Oh, no, it was open school, and I got at the time I used a SkyTel pager, and I got a notification that a plane hit one of the towers, and it was people who right away knew it was terrorists. Me as a cop just thought it was a plane crash, but I knew it was Manhattan. It was a big deal, and I wanted to get there, but I wanted to wait until I heard my daughter speak. And then I left at the school and saw the second plane crash came over my SkyTel. And I get in driving a Crown Vic, got put on my uniform, driving a Crown Vic at the time, driving north on Flatbush Avenue, and all these cars were running red lights. And it was strange to me, and I pulled up next to one and hit the siren and looked at the driver like, "What are you doing?" And he just held up a FDNY permit. Said, come. And I put on my lights, and I started this little caravan. At first it was him, then it was second car, third car, and then there was about 8 cars behind me. And I was kind of leading them because they were all in their private vehicles going to the site. And the first painful moment of that day was when they were going north on Flatbush, we were given clear orders to stay in our boroughs because we didn't know what else was coming. So I had to turn right onto Rogers Avenue to go to Snyder Avenue. And I watched them all, and I knew they were going to the site, which is where I wanted to be. But I did whatever purposeful things we could do in those times. I wound up visiting hospitals and seeing police officers and firefighters who were hurt. And eventually I got there that night. But I was getting these phone calls from my sister that was worried about my nephew Michael, my godson. And I frankly discounted it as a nervous mother. because I didn't know fire operations, and his firehouse was in Brooklyn on Hancock Street, and I didn't think he'd be there. And I wasn't there yet. And then I got the phone call from her, in a meeting in headquarters, that he was there. And that was life-changing. And that became, I went to the site that night, and one of the first things that came to me, besides realizing that I'd never see him again, I saw the devastation. I just felt there was not going to be any survivors. And the first thing I thought, what came to me was, he was 13 years younger than me. And he would always say, Uncle Joe, that's awesome. Uncle Joe, that's awesome. He'd tell me about like something a cop said about me in a bar he was at. Uncle Joe, that's awesome. When I got promoted, Uncle Joe, that's awesome. Uncle Joe, that's awesome. And I thought, standing there at that pile, I thought, what did he love so much about me? Like, I almost felt unworthy. And I thought, I don't know, but that's who I have to be. And that became like, when I console people at funerals, especially like an 8-year-old kid who lost a parent or a parent who lost a child, if I feel like I'm reaching that person, I hear my nephew saying, Uncle Joe, that's awesome. And he's become a big motivator for me. And I guess that's part of where I said, we support the people who carry out the mission. So my days, there was really no rocket science. There wasn't much I could do as a chief. I couldn't bring those buildings up. I couldn't back those planes up. But what I could do is go to that site every day and walk around and talk to the firefighters and the cops and the construction workers and do the best I could to encourage them. And I would bring people to the site. And when they were closing it, I felt like a part of me was closing. Wow. It was almost, that place became almost like a spiritual place for me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss on that day.
Yes.
It's such a tragic day. I think it's etched into everyone's minds, but you had, firsthand experience being there on the ground. And how did that change your perspective on service and sacrifice, being there on 9/11 and seeing and witnessing what you did?
Well, we had the plane crash in October. Forget the flight number. It was in Rockaway. And I went to that, and of course, it was a couple of hundred people killed. It was horrible. But I remember looking at it thinking that all my life I thought of a plane crash as like the most horrific thing that could happen. And I'm looking at this, and it's horrific, but it almost, like, it looks like a bad car accident because of what I was seeing every day at Ground Zero. So I guess I think that was, and this was a great question, because when a lot of times people say to me, how'd you get here? Like, whatever this spot is I'm at. And my first answer is, well, it must be 9/11. Because frankly, I don't know how this happened to me. I don't know how I got to this point. But I don't think it was 9/11. I think it was watching Walter Fox, when I was a little boy. And I'd have to spend too much time not living this journey to go back and figure out how I got here. So I'm just going to take it where it goes every day. But I know, what I do know is that every single thing we experience has an effect on us that's more profound than we realize.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's including the impact we have on each other.
Yeah. Wow, isn't that the truth there?
Oh.
It really is. I mean, it's such a powerful statement there. It's kind of like the domino effect, right?
Yeah.
Everything does lead to something eventually. Yeah.
And if we recognize that everything is more powerful than we realize, then maybe we'll spend a little more attention in everything we do. Every exchange with every person, with the security officer downstairs. And as I'm saying this, I hope that I will remember to spend a few minutes chatting with him when I go down.
He'll love that.
Well, because after all, I am saying that everything we do and every experience we have has more of an impact we know. So why not have the most of them? That's why I'm not home much.
Yeah.
Can't have those experiences at home.
For sure. For sure. Now, my question is, day over day, you're going and you're on site and you're pouring into people. Did at any point you become even a bit desensitized to see just so much despair and just people hurting day over day?
Well, that's interesting. About a year or two before I retired, 2016, I noticed that when they put up videos of somebody shot in the police commissioner's briefing that I go to 2 or 3 times a week, I started to not feel good. Like it started to bother me. And this was new for me. And then when I started to see emails as chief of transit of a woman groped in the subway, it bothered me. And I thought, I'm starting to feel. And I think for all those years, you learn how not to feel while you're going through something. So the question is, what happens when you don't feel? Do you just put it down someplace? Does it come out in other ways? Does it come out through anger, through addiction? And I was lucky because I think I lived a good life, but I know I wasn't feeling. And I see a therapist because any effective life coach or human being has help.
Yeah. And
her name is Jackie, and she'll tell me, because I started dealing with unraveling this right after I retired. I guess when it was safe. And she'll tell me that when I used to, 2015, 14, talk about something horrific, she said I would use the same tone as if I said I stopped to get bread at the deli. And now, like even I do monthly articles, you know, for the Rockaway Wave, and I post something every day, and sometimes I'll read the articles to her. And an article that I sit there writing, when I read it to her, I'm crying. Ira Kadim, like when I read that article I wrote about him, you know, tears came. And I remember my second or third or fourth session with her back in 2013. I said, Jackie, at some point I want to figure out why I never cry. And I don't know where that came from. It was just one of those as I'm about to sit down.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that when you suppress feelings, you suppress all feelings. It's not like turning the hot water and the cold water. You have a dial, you can adjust both. Feelings are all feelings. And if you suppress pain, you suppress joy. So the question is, the challenge is for all of us, because it's not just first responders. Teachers experience trauma. Because when you have 30 children in your class, and you know that one of them is not getting more love in this classroom than they get at home, that's trauma. So the question is, to what extent do we allow ourselves to feel, or does it get to the point where we can't do if we feel too much? And that's the balance that I have always looked for, and I look for it now too. And that's why when I read the news, I look at the caption, and if it's about a child struck by a car, I may open just to see where it was, and then I don't read it. And it's not that I don't care about that child, but I've just seen a lot of pain.
Yeah.
You're protecting yourself.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're also just a human. You sound like you're not. Like you have done so much that most humans would not be able to go through. But at the end of the day, you are. And I think that talking with your therapist and you even asking the question of why can't I cry, and putting, because you've had that wall up for so long. And so what advice would you give to police officers right now in their field? Would you tell them to go down the route of put that brick wall up? Or would you say, hey, when you experience this trauma for every week, maybe go and let that out somewhere else in a positive way? Or what's your advice to them, I guess?
Make sure the wall's not brick.
Wow.
Make sure you're able to put your feelings, suppress them, be aware of them. Watch what you're doing. If you find yourself with bad habits, if you find yourself drinking too much, if you find yourself angry, if you find yourself looking at cop videos on your phone all day, if you find yourself doing anything that's destructive, stop and get help.
Yeah.
There's help everywhere. The department the NYPD has great counseling services. And people are worried about a stigma, but you know, many people have taken a gun to themselves without seeking help. I once went to a police suicide. And I mean, I know of, you know, the number of people I know that have killed themselves is it's stark. The fact that most people, if you ask, maybe knew one person or two or none, where with me it's multiple, like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. But I went to one as a one-star chief, and I got to the scene, and on the end table by this officer's bed was Spring 3100 is a monthly magazine that comes out, and he had the page open that said help is available with all the resources. So he had that page open on the end table and then went and shot himself in the bathtub.
Jesus.
So he was this close. He was this close. So if only he had I don't know, maybe if he looked for help sooner, you know, but the help is there.
Yeah.
Help is there.
Yeah.
He was this close.
Wow.
So sorry to hear that. Wow,
Yeah.
that is tragic.
Yeah. You know, you touched on something that was just profound, and it's something that, you know, I'm going to also share with my friends is about the emotions that you suppress, you know, and then if you are suppressing, you know, pain, it's also going to prevent you from, it's going to put you in a position to suppress also your joy and to be able to show affection and show up in these areas. And you just begin to become very cold. And then how you show up, you know, whether you're a father or a brother or a mentor, it affects those things. So I guess my question is, what would you say is a first step for people who might be suppressing any form of anger so that they can show up better in their spheres of influence, right? Whether it's a father, a mentor, a teacher, a brother, what would you suggest would be their best?
99% of any challenge like that is recognizing it. And if you recognize, because to recognize that you're suppressing your feelings, you'll recognize that there's something you're seeing and experiencing that's upsetting you. And from there, there's help. You know, there's help. There's life coaches. There's therapists. There's friends. There's this. One of my TikTok videos. A child is walking in a field with the father, and there's a big branch in the way, and the kid says, "You think I can move this?" And the father says, "You can if you use all your strength." And the kid's huffing and puffing and says, "You're wrong. I can't move it." And he says, "You're not using all your strength." He says, "I'm right here, and you haven't asked my help." And none of us are alone in this. None of us are alone. And if we feel alone, and if we have nowhere to go during our day, go out. You'll find someone. If you just walk around Marine Park or Fort Greene Park we were chatting about, you're going to see people sitting on benches together who are probably not brothers and sisters, but they're people who find each other. Because we're not meant to do this alone. And whether it's finding the comfort of friends, the help of others, professionals, therapists, clergy, there's people there. If we're doing it alone, it's going to be very hard to get out of whatever pain we're in.
Yeah. You have a community. You have people around you.
Use all your strength.
Yeah. What great wisdom. What great advice. I mean, you can tell why you've transitioned from one profession to the next, and you're definitely giving just such great wisdom. And I just want to touch upon, you brought up your TikTok. I've seen your Instagram. You're on X. I mean, you are a little influencer, kind of a big influencer. You're doing this stuff online. And we've heard, I mean, a lot of, the speeches you've given even right now that's touched me, and stuff is going to stick with me right now. But some of the stuff you're sharing online, it's so beautiful and so powerful and reaching so many people. And I just wanted to actually show one of those clips we have from your Instagram page. And then I want to talk about the importance of social media in your journey and what you're doing. So let's check it out.
Couples who are married for 50 years and tell each other that they love each other twice a day and never once say why. We love our friends, we love our partners, and we appreciate the people in our life. But I try to practice telling people why I love them, why I care about them. It's just a practice that for me makes me more aware of how much I value the people in my life. I love you because you're kind to me. I appreciate you because you listen to me. I appreciate you because you were there for me when I needed you 20 years ago. To my children, when I call them on the phone, I think about who they are and what they've accomplished in life. And when they allow me, which is not too often, I tell them. It's when we communicate to people why we appreciate them, when we communicate to friends why we feel safe with them, when we communicate to our partners why we love them, we're more in touch with who they are to us and why we appreciate them. And therefore, we love them more, we appreciate them more, and they know it. And if we practice that more, I think everything gets better. But like everything important in life, it takes practice. Hope this helps.
Oh,
wow. thought to that. That completely just changed my perspective, because words are meaningless unless you really are diving into what does love mean to you? Why do you love me? Why are you saying this to me right now? There's actions, but you can also expand on your word, your verbiage, I guess.
Wow. That's why, like, there's a trend where a lot of people today, instead of saying thank you, are saying I appreciate you. And I love that, because most people who say that, they mean it, because thank you is easy. You know, my two-year-old Charlotte has learned, 2-year-old granddaughter Charlotte has learned how to say thank you.
Yeah.
I think she knows what it means, but when you say I appreciate you, it's a different level.
Yeah.
And that, you know, the social media, I'm on a 4-day schedule on TikTok.
Oh, yeah?
It's something every 4 days, and I've been doing it since October of 2023. And I occasionally put TikTok videos on regular social media. But social media, I put something every day out. And I'm very fortunate. I have things backed up to share. And every now and then, like when I mentioned before, looking from someplace else, how did this happen? Yeah. Like, how do I have things backed up that are shareable? And shareable, for me, shareable is, I was testifying in federal court in defense of a couple of police officers who made an arrest for someone who got arrested for groping someone on a subway. And the city attorneys asked me to say what I do. And almost as an afterthought, the last thing I said was, and I'm very active on social media. And I said, and I looked at the jurors and I said, and that's very important to me, because I try to present the world in a way that's more positive than too many people think. And when I said that, and they did exactly what you're doing, they all nodded. And I went, because they didn't have a phone in the courtroom, and I went right outside and put it right on my phone, because I never said that before. And that's it. For me, it's not something I get paid for, obviously, but for me, it's the same job I had as a 3-star chief, as a cop. This is the job now. And it's just trying to present some good in the world. And you'll see, I'll put up pictures where I'll supportive photos of, you know, police officers or people working. Occasional corny, like the video you may have seen when I was in Vegas, and I had
into the slot machine.
I put the 20 in the slot machine, got out 4 5s, and I was like, I won. And when I put up corny, I always like really second, third, and fourth time guess myself, because it's not consistent with my message. But we all need to laugh sometimes.
We're all human, and it's showing just a goofy, fun side to you as well. What's the feedback been like on social media?
The feedback is, let's say the TikTok videos, almost every one, and believe me, when we say influencer, I'm not this million follower person, but I'll look, like I put up a video the other day, and I was on my Peloton. I got off the Peloton, I put the video up, got on the bike, got off, and looked, and it had 300 views. And I thought, 300 people have taken the time to look at this video. That's all I need. I don't need 3 million. Because in those 300 views, one person wrote, I needed to see this today.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And it takes work. You know, it takes time. I got to my sister Irene in Virginia Beach. She proofreads every single thing I write, because and to Marcella, my girlfriend, who the times I haven't sent something to my sister, or if I respond to something, will send me a screenshot and say, you got to watch that talk to text. And I'll correct it, but it's work, but it's for me, it's a job. It's a job, because I'm just feeding humanity like we all are. And like I often say in response, if somebody says something very favorable to me in the comments, I say, like all of us, I'm just doing the best I can.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And I mean that when I say it. We're all doing the best we can.
Yeah, and can you ask for anything else? No. For everybody, just do the best they can. Wow. Well, I just have to say, this was such a powerful conversation that we just had, and I just wanted to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule in your life to motivate us, to inspire us, because it's definitely what I'm feeling right now. So thank you for your service as well, and for everything that you've done for the community. So appreciate you guys. Joe Fox, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for these.
Joe, honestly, I feel like healing is compounding, and you have just said things that I'm going to share, just like that one person who said, I needed this today. You have said things that I'm going to take into my friend groups and the people that I know. And so, although it's one person that commented, that's just going to compound, and that next person is going to say that next person and that next person. So thank you for just doing a healing work and just doing the Lord's work. And you're amazing. You're incredible. This was incredible.
Just doing the best I can, like all of us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
You're
Thank
doing
you.
it. All right. Well, thank you so much for
Nadine.
being
Thank
here,
you,
guys.
Zeke.
We are going to take a quick commercial break. We have a little bit more of the show on this April Fool's Day. It's going to be an AM reacts to some pranks. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be right back.